Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and attitude ruled. I am Pennsylvania Joe, and with me today is a man who becomes more handsome and more well-educated every day. His name is Ryan Arico.
Poor old Bartlett, he's just sick.
Well, this episode tonight was live from Tennessee, and I think that's why Bartlett is skipping this episode.
Yeah, he just couldn't take it.
Yeah.
The possibility of Tennessee Lee being there the whole time.
Yeah, but he is the hardest working man in podcasting today, Jason Bartlett, so he is not with us, but he'll be back next week. So in this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to talk about the Raw that aired on May 18th, 1998 from Nashville, Tennessee. It features Jim Ross, Michael Cole, Jerry the King Lawler, and a little bit of Al Snow on commentary. Ryan, all of our rowdy friends are here, so are you ready to get this show started?
I am ready, and that was a great line out of JR. I thought we were getting in the Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. So we get a video package here. We're talking about the number one contender, Dude Love. And it's a great video package highlighting the events over the last 3-4 weeks, including a recap from last week's show where we saw a tag team match putting Stone Cold Steve Austin with Mr. McMahon as a tag team partner against the Nation, and all hell just broke loose. And Dude Love is the number one contender, and this has been a story that's been going on for the past few weeks now, since WrestleMania. And Ryan, ever since was it April 6th that was the episode after WrestleMania?
That sounds about right.
And I think that's an episode that we saw a pretty big increase in downloads or streams or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to thinking, this is a big reason why we're getting this Mr. McMahon every week against Stone Cold Steve Austin as our main storyline that's driving every show.
Just like the WWF that back then, we're getting a Stone Cold Mr. McMahon bump.
Yes. And if somebody was to ask me, hey, Joe, you are a big wrestling fan and I love the Attitude Era, where would you suggest I start watching? The Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania 14 would be a great place to start.
The only other place I may say would be the pay-per-view after the screw job.
Right.
If you want to go back a little bit further just to lead into it.
Right. We get on that episode, April 6th, I believe it was, we get the start of the Austin era. We get the new introduction of DX. And those two things have really been driving every show every week since then.
Absolutely.
So without wasting any more time here, the pyro hits. And Jim Ross and Michael Cole are formally introducing us to tonight's show from the commentary table. And we hear a chorus of boos from this Nashville crowd, and that can only mean one thing.
Yep.
It is Vince McMahon, and he's not alone. He is with Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe, making his way into the ring. Nashville crowd is chanting for Austin, of course. Vince tells us that Austin has suffered a mild concussion after Vince's devastating clothesline last week.
One of the worst clotheslines of the year.
Vince has taken the liberty to bar Steve Austin from the arena tonight for Austin's own protection against Vince and his associates. Then we get a video of Steve Austin attempting to enter the building. It looked like he was in a parking garage, and he goes up and threatens a planted security guard.
I think that's the same guy that
the hot dog guy
threw. No, I think he was the guy that China threw into the lockers. Remember when she was like running around looking for Stone Cold or something, and she threw some jobber into a locker? I think it was that guy.
Yeah, well, and I think he was the hot dog guy too, maybe.
He probably.
But yeah, Austin threatens him, and the crowd popped, and I popped. It was a great scene there out in the parking garage. Vince then introduces perhaps the next World Wrestling Federation champion, Dude Love. And Corporate Dude makes his way into the ring, sporting a suit jacket, a tie, a dress shirt, and, of course, his best pair of sweatpants.
He even has his teeth in, but still sweatpants.
Yes. Yeah. And dude cuts a very corporate promo here. He is proclaiming that he will be the new champion and that Mr. McMahon has an evil, sinister smile on his face while Dude Love is cutting this promo. Vince then surprises us a little bit and calls out Mr. Runnels, a man who used to call himself Gold Dust. Pretty nice reception from this crowd for Dustin. He looks like he's fresh off of knee surgery. He's got his knee wrapped up. Vince talks to Dustin about Dustin blaming Vince for all of his problems. Vince then tells Dustin to look in the mirror and take control of his own life. Vince tells Dustin if he can beat Dude Love tonight, then Dustin becomes #1 contender. But if he loses, Vince will not pay him for 30 days, but he still has to work. What a relatable dickhead boss situation here. Yeah. It's like getting your PTO request denied for no reason. Dustin accepts the challenge. He starts beating on Dude Love, but then he gets destroyed by the Stooges and Dude Love. So I thought that was funny because I think it was Bartlett that mentioned last week that he was a little upset that people are going after Mr. McMahon, but they're just going to ignore it. Well, they didn't ignore that Dustin Runnels promo from last week, so that was nice to see. So JR tells us that we're going to see the debut of Val Venis next, and that is exciting. And we cut to the back, and Jerry Lawler opens a door on a minivan, and someone gets out of the van draped in a blue blanket, and Lawler starts escorting this person over to that same security guard that we saw earlier with Steve Austin. Jerry Lawler assures the guard that this is not Steve Austin. The guard takes a peek under that blanket and lets them through. And we come back from commercial, and the mystery person wanders off. But Jerry Lawler finds him. I will say him. It looks like it's a male figure. And we cut back to the ring where Scorpio waits for his opponent. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this girthy opening segment of Raw?
Yeah, another very girthy segment to open it up. We've got another, 15, 20 minutes before we get to our first match, and ongoing theme now. We better get used to it. But as long as things start off like this, I don't think anyone really cares that we're not going to have some random junk match. Instead, we get Mr. McMahon, lackeys shoulder to shoulder with him coming down. All of this worked. When McMahon said that his vicious clothesline is what put Stone Cold out, I definitely got a good laugh out of that. And great shot with Stone Cold back there telling the security guard that he's going to take 5 minutes to go chug some Steve Weisers. And after that, he's either going to do this the hard way or the easy way. Dude Love, I completely agree. He did a great job on the mic here, just leaning into this corporate dude gimmick, saying the dude only becomes stronger. The dude's appearance becomes younger. And as we learned last week, the dude becomes more handsome and well-educated every day. Very great. Then he talks up both of McMahon's stooges. The crowd didn't like that. He got a good boo out of them from that. I thought the same thing about Bartlett being upset about Goldust or Dustin Runnels being ignored, but we did get an answer here. But he does come out with that giant wrap around his knee, as you informed us last week that non-kayfabe, he needed some surgery, and McMahon even leaned into that. That's what he said. He goes, I guess your little knee's hurting you or whatever. But if you can put together and have this match with Dude Love and win, you'll be the #1 contender. So of course he's going to take this. How could he not? It's his chance at the belt. So regardless of all the handicaps that he may have going into this, he's going to have it off with Dude Love, and I'm looking forward to that. I think those guys could put on a good program.
I've worked in a couple places that were a bigger corporate environment. I just can't get over how realistic this whole thing is, with certain people just kissing the boss's ass and the boss kind of forming this little fraternity.
Yeah, his clique.
Yeah, his clique. Like, it's so realistic, and it just holds up so well. But anyway, this is going to take us to our first match of the evening. Val Venus defeats Scorpio by pinfall in 6 minutes and 9 seconds. So we get the Hello Ladies intro music. Fantastic entrance by Val Venis. He's got the towel that he takes off in a very creepy fashion.
There's really no him coming into himself with him. He's coming in as the version I remember him as.
Yeah. He doesn't cut a promo on the mic yet, but I'm sure we'll get there soon. But this was a great entrance. Couple of really great signs in the crowd. There was one that said, Val Venus is my dad. There was one that said, I'm Val Venus's stunt double, which popped me. Jim Ross describes Val as a well-conditioned athlete with good agility, and I have to agree with that so far. I think he looks pretty good in the ring for a goofy gimmick.
He's definitely got the look.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's a big, tall, strong guy, yeah.
But definitely has some athleticism, too. I'm not sure why you would want to be a wrestler when you are already an adult film star, but to each his own.
Got to do something else in the off days.
Val does a little gyration above Scorpio's lifeless body that was pretty funny. Scorpio got some moves in here, too. He hits an impressive splash from the top rope where he changed direction in midair. That was pretty cool. He also went for a moonsault, but Val got out of the way. Val then hits a frog splash, which they are calling the money shot, which is just a perfect name for his finisher. This was a surprisingly good match, in my opinion. I look forward to more Val Venus matches and his pervy antics moving forward. So this was kind of a surprise to me. I thought that Val Venus looks pretty good in the ring, and he's got this extremely edgy, goofy gimmick, but I could take him seriously if he works like this in the ring all the time. Ryan, were you a moaning and a groaning and a screaming while you were watching this match?
I agree with you completely. I thought this was a pretty solid introduction to Val Venus. Scorpio, sadly, he's back to being a jobber after a full 3 weeks off of that, as he picked up a few victories with Terry Funk, but now he's no music, just waiting in the ring for this new up-and-coming Val Venus, who, outside of his entrance and the music and how he sounds, up on the Titantron...
The explosions.
Hot dog buns. No, I'm talking the hot dogs being placed into the buns. That was my favorite. So juvenile. At the very start of the match, I thought Val looked maybe a little bit nervous for his first TV match here, but I thought him and Scorpio ended up finding a pretty good rapport with each other and ended up putting on a pretty good match for the first time Val Venus got in there. This wasn't your typical 2-minute jobber match, so maybe that's going to be one of the changes we get if we have a 20-minute story to lead into our first match. Instead of it just being these quick 2-3-minute matches and we have 6-7 of those, I'm fine if we just have maybe 4 10-ish minute match. I could get more involved when matches are longer. Right. And I think that really played out here. It allowed us to see Val's full range in the ring. Yeah, I thought this was a good match, including the money shot finish to pick up the very expected win over Scorpio, but good way to debut Val Venus.
I agree, and as a celebration, I think you should give us that Val Venus soundbite. Perfect. We then cut to Steve Austin trying to enter the building again. Steve this time informs the planted security guard that he has unfortunately selected the hard way to handle things, and Steve Austin beats the hell out of the security guard and enters the building. We come back from commercial and the glass breaks. We're not wasting any time here. The crowd, of course, popping their asses off. JR reminds us that this man has been barred from the building. Stone Cold tells us if there's going to be a Monday Night Raw, you can bet your last little bottom dollar that he's going to be there. Steve says he's getting more pissed off at Vince McMahon every day, as are the rest of us. He calls out McMahon, Patterson, and Briscoe to bring their asses out now. So they brought their asses out. And Vince keeps repeating, "Who do you think you are?" to Steve Austin, where Steve Austin replies he's the person looking at 3 jackasses in suits. Austin then says he wants to fight all 3 of them tonight. Not wrestling, fighting. He wants to fight all 3 of them. And Vince says that he doesn't go to a street fight in clothes like these. Steve Austin then asks the crowd, if you want to see a street fight tonight, give me a hell yeah, which of course there was a very loud hell yeah from the audience. Vince tells Austin that he'll give him 2 out of the 3, but he won't tell him which 2. Austin says it don't matter which 2 it is because 2 of you is going to get your ass beat, and that's the bottom line. We then move to an Edge video. This time, we are told that he is undaunted. We embrace the Edge and then let go. Another badass Edge video here. Then we see Jerry Lawler's mystery guest in a makeup chair. Just sitting there doing nothing. Ryan, what are your thoughts on the way Steve Austin entered the building tonight and challenged for a street fight, another Edge teaser video, and Lawler's mystery guest?
I thought it all was great. Obviously, you put Stone Cold on the screen and you're going to get a pop out of the crowd, and that's exactly what they got here. He first kicks the shit out of the plant out front and rams his head into the metal gate and called him a little bastard and just walked in. And then after that, we come back and he's coming down to the ring, and as usual, the place comes unglued at the sound of...
Yeah.
The moment you hear that, it's just the place going crazy. And Stone Cold, as usual, cuts a great promo here. He talks about crashing the party and calling the three Stooges out here pathetic. He's calling them all pathetic. And McMahon, Patterson, and Briscoe, they all come out and they talk about this 3-on-1 street fight, which we then learn will be a 2-on-1 street fight, and the crowd wants it. I want it. Who doesn't want to see that? And one thing, I know you brought it up a couple weeks ago, but Briscoe and Patterson really need to get credit for just the cartoon level lackeys that they play here. To me, watching it now, maybe I didn't like it back then. I can't even really remember what my thoughts were, but I find it absolutely hilarious the way that those two act. You got the Three Musketeers here. Yeah, I thought this was an awesome segment that really worked. The Edge vignette, still great. These are still good. They feel right, but I really hope it comes soon because I don't want just more of these video cut-ups. I want to actually see him soon.
Yeah.
So
a little thing that I've noticed that's really cool to see is you get when you hear the glass break, you get the audible cheers from the crowd. But the other thing is the camera does a really good job to show everybody stands up. Like everybody in the arena gets up out of their seat whenever that glass breaks.
Yeah, there's no one with their ass planted when that glass breaks. That's why I always say it comes unglued, because it just feels like you could feel the arena shaking the moment he comes out.
Yeah. So really good job by the camera crew to always catch that moment too.
Yeah.
So speaking of coming unglued, they're going to stay unglued because Sable's music hits next, and she is strutting her stuff down the ramp to the Nashville crowd's delight. Sable calls out Mark Marrow. And we all remember what happened to Mark Marrow last week. He struts out here looking like he has not lost any of his pride.
Yeah, like his career didn't come to an end last week.
Yeah, but we get a reminder that he was Sable bombed last week. Sable says that she's willing to have an amicable split if he's willing to be an adult about it. Mark Marrow then pulls out a contract that Sable apparently signed 2 years ago, basically saying that Mark Marrow owns Sable, that she is his property.
Don't know why anyone would sign that, but...
Right. Mark then tells Sable to get in his corner, and Sable listens, and Terry Funk's music hits. So all of that takes us to our next match. Terry Funk defeats Mark Marrow with Sable by pinfall in 4 minutes and 2 seconds. We start off this match, we get some pretty good violence outside of the ring to start things off for the first minute or so. Mark Marrow is delivering some great-looking Golden Gloves punches, and Terry Funk is selling them like the legend that he is. And referee Jack Doan takes an inadvertent shot from Funk, which allows Marrow to deliver a low blow. But it's not enough to put Terry Funk away. Sable gets up on the apron to banshee scream at the referee. This then allows Terry Funk to deliver a beautiful-looking DDT to Mark Marrow and get the win. And Sable has a little bit of a grin on her face. Ryan, what did you think of this match?
Before the match, this was just Sable coming out and rubbing Mark's face in it, humiliating him just a little further. And then we learn he has some contract. I'm not sure a contract like this would hold up in court, saying that you're basically my slave. That was basically what he said, right?
Pretty much.
I thought he was going to get Sable bombed here again, right in front of us all. It wasn't something I remembered, but I thought, well, he probably just slipped out of my memory after the first Sable bomb, and then I never cared about him again like the rest of the industry. But the match did start, and like you, I was very entertained with this. I thought Terry Funk and Mark Merrow put on a pretty damn good-looking show. It ends pretty quickly, though, and we don't get too far into it. Mark tries to land, or he does land, the signature low blow, but that's not going to keep a hardcore legend like Terry down. So kicks out of that and allows Sable to distract the ref with her Banshee scream. That allows Terry Funk to nail the DDT and pick up the victory. So we're going to continue this story with Sable and Mark. In my mind, it just ended with the power bomb last week, but I guess it continues for a little bit longer, and we're going to see where that goes.
Yeah, we will see where that goes. I remember they do keep it going with Jackie when she eventually comes in, but I don't know when that is, so perhaps another Sable bomb is in the near future. But we then go to the back where the security guard from earlier is nursing his wounds and chatting it up with some of Nashville's finest, as JR tells us. And then we get to see the 1-800-COLLECT rewind, which is the Undertaker smearing the King last week with a chokeslam and a tombstone. Then we cut to the police still looking for Steve Austin, and they bump into Jerry Lawler and his mystery guest. Ryan, any additional thoughts on this ongoing story of Steve Austin breaking into the building?
We just learned the cops are now there trying to find out what's going on. My favorite part, though, was when they questioned the King and wanted to look under his blanket at that person. He says, I already showed Barney Fife outside, referring to that plant security guard. So that line got a pop out of me, but not a ton development here. This is just, I don't even really want to call it filler, but it is filling in the missing pieces between why the cops are showing up. It's becoming more and more like a show.
Yes.
With segments like this.
Yep. And if I was in the building tonight, I would probably want Nashville's finest to escort me away before I see this next match.
On the Tennessee Stud.
So we are off to our next match. The DOA defeats LOD2000 by pinfall in 2 minutes and 39 seconds. So it was short. That's good.
Yeah.
LOD2000 enters without Sonny, so nobody wants to see this. I hate saying that about two Hall of Famers, but it's the way it is right now in 1998.
Yeah.
We get the stupid switcheroo again from DOA that nobody cares about, and DOA gets the win. But Animal meets up with Kevin Oh My God Kelly outside the ring and says that he wants a 6-man match with DOA next week, and that LOD will have a partner. So we'll see who that's going to be. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on LOD 2000 versus the most annoying thing about 1998, the DOA?
Well, my initial thought was, man, not this match again. You got to be kidding me. They even gave this match a Michael Cole and JR voiceover as if this feud matters to anyone. And to really put a highlight on that, Hawk's really been struggling lately, and that continued tonight. He tried to do an enziguri, and it was one of the worst enziguris I've ever seen. JR even said, well, Hawk did an enziguri. He hit him more in the side and arm.
Didn't get all of it.
Didn't get all of it. It was just so poor looking. Poor Hawk, he's got to get off those perks or whatever he's on right now, because he's really losing it in the ring, and it's evident every time he gets in there. So that was terrible. The match was terrible. And the fact that LOD lost again by the stupid fucking switcheroo. And Michael Cole has to fucking say it every time. Oh, the switcheroo, the switcheroo. Stupid. And now we learn we're going to have a 6-man tag with these groups. Yay. Let's just continue it even more.
I already know it's going to make me puke.
Yeah.
There's a little teaser there.
Oh, you're right. I remember hearing that he was supposed to be the 3rd member at one point.
Could be puke. Well, now that that's over with, we go to the back where the King is with his bodyguard again, just walking around in the back. And we come back from commercial and we find out that Kane and Paul Bearer visited a medical facility to prove that Paul is indeed Kane's father. So we'll probably get more on that later. And we kick off the Warzone 2nd hour. And the King makes his way to ringside because Jerry Lawler joins commentary for this 2nd hour, and he's with his mystery bodyguard.
Blanket.
It
reminded me of It.
Yeah. Yep. And the King joins JR on commentary, and he unveils Al Snow with Head. I gotta say, this was pretty disappointing for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Not to diminish Al Snow, but we already saw him last week.
Yeah, I was expecting someone new or someone we haven't seen in months, something.
Yeah, so this was a big swing and a miss for me. But Al Snow again says that he wants to see Vince, and Lawler then escorts Al Snow away from commentary. So, Ryan, what were your thoughts on this big reveal of Blanket being Al Snow?
Blanket. Not to be confused with Michael Jackson's kid.
Yeah.
Same camp as you. I was a little bit disappointed. Not Al Snow. I'm not disappointed in Al Snow or don't like that he's here. I expected it to be a little bit bigger of a surprise than who it was.
Yeah, it just felt like they should have just done this last week instead of...
when we weren't expecting him.
Right, yeah. Well, anyway, we are going to move it along to our next match. Dude Love defeats Dustin Runnels in a WWF Championship #1 contender match in 2 minutes and 19 seconds. I wonder what kind of surgery Dustin had on that knee, because what the fuck?
Last week, didn't you say he had it scoped?
I can't remember.
Obviously wasn't a very serious one.
The match is only 2 minutes, but what the fuck? Like,
Still, any match whatsoever.
Competing in the ring. Surprise, surprise, Patterson and Briscoe are at ringside for this one. We have a couple of cuts here to Steve Austin watching on the tiny little monitor in the back. Dude Love gets the mandible claw pretty early, like I said, 2 minutes, 19 seconds, and this was over quick. And Dude Love reveals a VKM heart tattoo on his arm, which I thought was hilarious. Ryan, what did you think of this quick 2 minutes and 19-second long #1 contender match?
I thought it was enjoyable enough for what it was. It was a 2-minute match that we knew was going to have shenanigans in it, especially knowing that Dustin Runnels' knee surgery was real and not kayfabe. You knew this wasn't going to last long, but I thought it was entertaining enough. You had Briscoe out there, causes the distraction, allows Dude Love to pick up the victory. Yeah, it's just a short match that keeps things flowing. And for a couple weeks in a row now, though, Dustin Runnels has matches that actually revolve around him instead of getting Sable over. So that's still a markup for him.
Miss Luna, though.
She just is gone. I'm assuming she's still under contract and she's going to probably show up. I'm going to have to assume with the oddities here soon.
Yeah.
It can't be too long before they come, right?
Yeah. This didn't do much. It did what it could within 2 minutes and 19 seconds, but it also filled that gap a little bit that Bartlett was talking about with Dustin complaining about Vince, and Vince was like, well, fuck you, get out there and wrestle.
Even if you got a knee injury.
And now he lost, and now he still has to work with a knee injury, so...
For free, 30 days.
It furthers that asshole boss storyline that's going on, which is pretty good stuff.
Unlike last week where we thought there was no payoff, we got some this week.
Yes, we did, and Steve Austin did not get a very nice payoff here. He got arrested by the cops in the back. Vince shows up to harass and yell at Steve Austin while he is being taken away in cuffs. But as the Stone Cold Steve Austin breaking and entering saga continues, we move it along to our next match. Kaientai, Dick Togo and Teo with Sho Funaki and Yamaguchi-san defeat the Headbangers by DQ in 5 minutes and 20 seconds. The Headbangers start making their entrance, and they are jumped on the ramp by Kai En Tai with Yamaguchi-san. Al Snow is still sitting in the front row. He did not leave, by the way. JR says, Yamaguchi-san is a very influential Japanese businessman, which I thought was a fantastic line from JR.
That was.
Bradshaw and Taka eventually run in. And man, the Kai En Tai guys, in my opinion, they're not bad to watch, but they're just so small. And when you have them in there with someone like Bradshaw, it just makes them look smaller.
They look small enough against the Headbangers, let alone
right.
when Bradshaw came in.
And it was 5 minutes and 20 seconds, but this match just felt long to me. And I just don't like this Bradshaw and Taka versus Kaientai thing they have going on, so hopefully we can shake that pretty quick. Ryan, what did you think?
Very similar thoughts here. I also love JR's line about Yamaguchi-san being a influential businessman. And it also made me thinking, with that little tidbit, we've now been given more story about the manager than we have about any member of Kaientai or anything thereabout.
Yep.
So to me, I think that maybe at first was a good thing, the mysteriousness behind Kaientai and where they came from. But I think at this point, we need to start getting a little bit of a story to get any investment behind them, because I just don't care, because I know nothing about them a month into their debut now. That kind of carried over into this match, where it was a 5-minute tag team match, which we don't really get too often anymore. I wasn't invested in anything here, especially once Bradshaw came out, because he just doesn't seem like he belongs in this feud at all. He's just bigger than his partner and all 3 members of the other team. It doesn't look like it should be happening. He looks out of place. So yeah, hopefully they could figure out a better story that fits all parties better.
Yeah, and Yamaguchi-san, I think he might be the only one who can speak English out of the group. So that's probably one of the main reasons why they brought him in. But yeah, there needs to be something with some substance, some kind of story behind it with these guys. I agree. We cut to Steve Austin in the back of a police cruiser, and Mr. McMahon is harassing him again, yelling at him. And then we move to the Castrol Slam of the Week. And that is Vader with his fat guy shirt, Vader bombing Barry Windham in his assless chaps.
Out of the WWF.
Out of the WWF. The stalker is gone. He has come and gone. And then we get more footage of Paul Bearer and Kane getting those DNA tests.
She was a moaning and a groaning and a screaming.
Ryan, any thoughts on Austin in the police cruiser, Vader bomb with his fat guy shirt, and Paul Bearer, Kane DNA tests?
Well, Vader and the fat guy shirt, not much to add there. Stone Cold sitting in the back. Just a good scene again, showing us, they got him and they're about to take him away now. So we're not going to see the street fight match, at least now that's what it looks like. Mm-hmm. This segment of the DNA test, though, I popped for this. Kane, he was sitting in the chair first, and just the setting, being in the doctor's office and him having on this black ski mask.
And like a tracksuit.
And the extremely 90s tracksuit. Yeah. But because there was a little bit of hair peeking out the back, you could see Isaac Yankem in this scene. Just the setting really helped. That doctor's office with those blonde curls coming out the back. I got a good chuckle out of that, but not nearly as much as when the doctor started putting the needle into Paul Bear's arm and he goes, it does hurt. It does hurt. It was just, I rewound it and listened to that about 4 times. And then JR responds with, "What a baby." Paul Bear continues to be the best thing in wrestling year in and year out.
Yes. Well, from there we get a DX entrance, and it is the whole crew out here. And this is easily one of the things that I hate most about the Attitude Era are these seizure-inducing DX entrances, because...
Yeah, I didn't remember him being this bad and it going on this long.
Man, I really want to see what these guys are doing while they walk down the ramp. I really want to see more of that video on the Titantron, but you just can't see it because they keep flashing.
And you're on the ground seizuring. You can't watch it.
Pretty disappointing. My seizure ended, though, to hear X-Pac tell the WWF superstars that they all got game, which is a little bit of a play on Spike Lee's newest film, He Got Game. Triple H does the "let's get ready to suck it." He makes some creepy reference to beating on his tom-tom.
And motion, don't forget. Yeah. The motion he made.
So lewd. And Road Dogg does his New Age Outlaws saying, and then cuts a promo on the Nation. And the Nation makes their way down to the ring, and this takes us to our next match. The New Age Outlaws defeat The Rock and Owen Hart by pinfall to retain the WWF Tag Team Championships in 8 minutes. This is supposed to be a tag team match, but it turned into complete chaos. We have The Rock and Owen versus New Age Outlaws. Owen Hart eats Road Dogg's ear. Again, this is this is like the third week now that he is...
I really don't remember this gimmick, this ear-biting gimmick that he did.
Yeah, he had a meal again. This is 3 weeks in a row on someone's ear.
We're going to have Gangrel come in soon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the bloodbaths. And Farouk runs in while Chyna has the ref distracted and absolutely plants The Rock with a pile driver. That was a beautiful looking pile driver. Outside of that, I didn't think too much of this. I thought it was just a little bit too much chaos going on. I think there were just too many people there to make it a really good match. I think if it was just The Rock and Owen versus New Age Outlaws and nobody else out there, it probably had a better chance. Also, this ear biting thing is just weird to me because there's like no explanation. Like it's barely even happening.
Oh, he bit someone's ear?
Yeah, and he's at it again. Ryan, what did you think of this DX segment, their little intro, and this tag team championship match?
I'm going to say something maybe controversial, I don't know. But the segment at the beginning, I've felt this way the last few times he was on the mic, but X-Pac sucks on the mic. When he talks, he just comes off as awkward and and lame. Like the way he was saying, I've got game and he's got game. Like it doesn't sound natural.
Yeah, he almost like sounds like he's under the influence of something, like he's drunk or something. Like,
yeah, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't find his promos very compelling, but Triple H's Tom thing, it was graphic and lewd. So I assume it at least got some attention because of that. But the crowd, the one thing they're latching on to is the New Age Outlaws spiel, that thing they like.
Right.
And for good measure, because Road Dogg delivers it well. It's easy to remember. It's a good thing. He does great with that. The match, big names involved here. You had a lot of good people, and some of the wrestling wasn't bad. It was just a whole lot of chaos. One thing that stuck out to me, and I know we've talked about D'Lo before and how he looks and how we all love it, but there's something about the way he moves that I think I finally hit on what it is. His exaggerated movements and struts. It's like a fighter in a video game. Mm-hmm. The way he walks, the way he moves his shoulders and head and hip. It just gives a little extra pop to the way he's moving, like it's entertainment, not real life. So I'm always going to give props to D'Lo, but the match did just dissolve into chaos. One thing we did see in this chaos, though, is Owen delivered a proper enziguri, so hopefully Hawk was looking backstage, was watching Owen deliver his, so he could see how it's actually done. But then he bit someone's ear off again. So this is a weird gimmick that I, as I said earlier, forgot about and will probably forget about again after we move on past it. This wasn't terrible. We had the storyline with Farouk and the Nation, but the chaos made it a little bit hard to focus on one thing.
Yeah. You mentioned that about D'Lo. It reminds me of something that I heard Jim Cornette say recently on one of his podcasts. He was talking about modern wrestlers and how a lot of them, they try to emulate video game characters, but the guys back in this day were trying to basically become video game characters, like have video games created after them and their moves and their likeness. And that's a big difference between these guys and newer modern wrestlers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we still, in case anybody was wondering, Stone Cold Steve Austin is still in the back of that police cruiser, but we come back from commercial, and Austin has just been released from the cops.
Just like whatever.
Yeah, no explanation, just released.
Well, they say he has to make an apology, but he doesn't. He flicks the guy off and basically calls him a dipshit, and the cops are like, yeah, good enough. Take off the cuffs.
Yeah, maybe Saul Goodman or somebody came to rescue Austin there that we didn't see. But Kevin, oh my God, Kelly, he's in the ring with Dr. Chuck Wolseley. And the good doctor tells us that Paul is the biological father of Kane. So the evil organ immediately plays, and here comes Kane with the happy papa. Paul Bearer tears the mic from Kevin Kelly and starts gloating about being Kane's daddy. Paul tells Undertaker that his mama was nothing but a 2-bit whore. So, as expected, if anyone would call your mother a 2-bit whore, the Undertaker comes in to beat the shit out of both of them. But while Undertaker goes back to beat on Paul a little bit more, he forgot about Kane, and Kane and Paul Bearer just start beating on the Undertaker. But wait a minute, here comes Vader. Here he is. Vader slowly beats on Kane while Undertaker chases Paul Bearer to the back. So, Ryan, what did you think of this Maury Povich segment with Paul Bearer being revealed as the daddy?
Well, I was very happy that it was not Jerry Springer out here.
Yeah, Dr. Chuck Wolseley did a nice job here of revealing the news.
And the doctor comes out here and says, basically by the power of science, that Paul Bearer is in fact Kane's father, which is a huge bombshell and deserves something like... just like a soap opera, because that's exactly what this is. And Kane and Paul Bearer, of course, come out to gloat about the results. JR drops a great line saying, all the chins are just jiggling like jello. He's a happy daddy. And then he called Undertaker and Kane's mom a 2-bit whore. That was fantastic. Undertaker comes out. All of that's great. But then out comes Vader. And has that line ever improved any storyline? I'd like to ask that. Out comes Vader. Man. And it just reminds us that Kane, in fact, has a match with Vader in the upcoming pay-per-view. And that kind of ruined my evening.
Yeah, that's really disappointing, but hopefully that won't last too long, the whole Vader-Kane thing that they're trying to throw in there. It's very much just thrown in there.
Very much.
And hopefully we get away from it soon. But anyway, we come back from commercial and Steve Austin is lacing up his boots and the Stooges are being introduced. So I guess this match is going to be against Jerry Briscoe and Pat Patterson. Surprise, surprise. Vince McMahon is not going to partake in the street fight. Jerry Lawler says they both look like they just came out of the Waffle House, which popped me. Tony Schimmel then announces that Sergeant Slaughter is the guest referee. Man, we are just, ever since the screw job, we have been trying to just screw people over left and right, and Stone Cold Steve Austin is really getting screwed here. The glass breaks, and we are on our way to our final match of the night. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson ends in a no contest in a 2-on-1 handicap street fight. Steve Austin gives Sergeant Slaughter, the referee, the double bird to start things off, and Slaughter did not like that, so he gives Steve Austin a cheap shot from behind, which then allowed the Stooges to attack Steve Austin. But that didn't last long. Stone Cold goes on the offense. And I have to say again that I am highly impressed with how Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe work.
This looked very, very good. It made everyone happy that Vince was not involved.
Yes. For guys who are old, and I know they were great wrestlers in their time. It was before our time, obviously. But they're old and retired and not in ring shape. Do you remember how bad that Sergeant Slaughter versus Triple H boot camp match was? This is not the case here with these guys. They look good at what they're doing. They're not giving a 5-star match by any means.
Sure. But hell of a match, especially since there's two of them and they get to play off each other. Right. That helps.
Austin eventually dishes out a stunner to both Stooges, and then Sergeant Slaughter tries to apply a Cobra Clutch, which Austin counters, which then earns Slaughter a stunner of his own. And here comes Corporate Dude Love. You had to know that was going to happen. Austin starts beating the hell out of Dude Love, and this Nashville crowd loses their shit. Somebody then jumps the rail in a rubber Stone Cold Steve Austin mask and jumps Dude Love. Then grabs a steel chair and nails Steve Austin in the back. Well, that fan reveals himself to be none other than Vince McMahon. Steve Austin is shocked at this and just starts beating on McMahon, but the odds are just stacked against Steve Austin here. He is the victim of a mandible claw, and we fade to black. But wait just a damn minute here. We have another extra attitude segment. thanks to the Cock or WWE Network for our friends overseas. Not much to this extra attitude segment, though. Vince McMahon and his cronies are celebrating in the ring after what they did to Austin. But Austin appears to be recharged, charges after Vince, dumping him out of the ring and chasing him all the way up the ramp, and then we officially fade to black. So there's a lot to unpack in this final match. Ryan, what did you think of it?
I loved it. I thought this was a great way to end. They didn't swerve us. We got the street fight match between Stone Cold and two of the Three Stooges. I loved when Patterson and Briscoe came out with these ridiculous custom-made shirts. The first IC champ on Patterson and the Briscoe Brother Body Shop, Tampa, with the phone number of the Briscoe Brothers Body Shop. That was hilarious. And this was the first time it was made crystal clear that Slaughter is also one of these Vince McMahon cronies, as he takes the cheap shot at Stone Cold. And JR even follows that up with, he's a crony. So that's good. There's no confusion there anymore. And I completely agree. Patterson and Briscoe put on a hell of a show with Stone Cold, because this was just Stone Cold kicking their ass, like from pillar to post, taking turns, which one he was beating on, and they both sold it perfectly. The only part I scratched my head over a little bit was Patterson like sneakily pulls something out of his pants and hits Austin and then hides it. And it was like, it's a street fight. Everything's legal. You don't got to hide anything. It just made me think that he was almost like a soldier in battle, just went back to his old days of wrestling and thought he had to hide it. But that wasn't the case here. That didn't do much, though, to throw the match off. Not only was the action good, I thought this end was great. When Mr. McMahon pulled off that rubber Halloween mask of Stone Cold, I thought that was perfect.
Yeah.
And then they just all beat the shit out of Stone Cold. Like you said, the numbers were just too great. The cards stacked too much against him. Too many people out there, and he finally succumbs to the Dude Love Mandible Claw. And for anyone not watching Extra Attitude, that's how things stopped. Extra Attitude didn't add much. This was just another way for Stone Cold to rally, get another pop out of the crowd. Just one last pop for the live audience is really all this was about, as he chased McMahon up the ramp to finish out the Extra Attitude. Everything about this worked. This was a great way to start and end things. It's a broken record anymore, because that's what they've been doing for the last few weeks, is we're going to start and end with Stone Cold and McMahon. But what else are you going to start and end with other than your strongest story you have going? So I loved it.
Yeah, and the Extra Attitude wasn't much, but again, it just kind of shows that the WWF is going to give their fans just a little bit extra for their money, which is always nice to see.
Yeah. Well,
as I said, we faded to black there, so let's move it on over to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, what do you have for us this week?
Well, my highlight, I'm going to just pick up where I left off. It is this Stone Cold McMahon episode-long story and the way everything unfolded, including the final match, which I thought was very strong. Big props to Patterson and Briscoe there. So all of that led to definitely my highlight. And my low light, it's a blast from the past. Someone who used to dominate our low lights at one point rears their ugly head yet again.
Oh, no.
Vader, completely ruining a great segment about Paul Bearer having the proof, about Kane, the Undertaker coming down and attacking, and then boom.
Yeah.
Fucking Vader. Low light.
Very, very low. So for my low light, I was going to go with DOA again, but I'm going to go with the Al Snow reveal, because I was expecting somebody a little more exciting and unexpected. And we saw Al Snow last week, so it wasn't really that exciting when they unveiled that blanket to be Al Snow. And for my highlight, I could easily go with the Austin McMahon saga again, but it doesn't surprise me anymore that is the best part of the show every week. But I'm going to go with Val Venus' TV debut. I thought it was a pretty good match, and I think Val Venus looks pretty good in the ring, and another guy who's going to help round out that mid-card level to really bring us to the heights of the Attitude Era. So that was nice
climax.
To see. Yes. Well, what better way to head into the news segment? This week, I have some news from the Wrestling Observer. Vince McMahon, if you remember, last week I reported that Eric Bischoff challenged Vince to a fight on Nitro. Vince McMahon's responded on the internet to Eric Bischoff's challenge, saying, "I consider Eric Bischoff's challenge a cheap and desperate tactic to increase WCW pay-per-view buys. Therefore, I will not appear at Turner's next pay-per-view as invited. However, if Mr. Bischoff is hell-bent on fighting me, then such a fight can be arranged at any time in any parking lot in the country, void of television cameras, photographers, and public announcement." Pretty good response there from Vince McMahon.
Yeah, it is.
Ryan, get your finger ready on the droopy arm button here for me, if you would.
I'm ready.
The May 19th tapings took place, and Edge had a match. So he's having matches, and that's exciting, meaning we might see him soon. Can you guess who he defeated? I will give you a hint. The OG of the droopy arm.
Oh, what the hell was his name?
Buddy Landel.
Buddy Landel. There's the name.
Yeah. So Edge getting some good work in there with Buddy Landel on May 19th, and hopefully we'll see Edge pretty soon here. Meltzer is reporting that the WWF is not sure what to do with Dan Severn at this point. There's a thought of putting him in a stable with Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman. Yikes.
Yeah.
Last piece of news here is not really that exciting, but I thought I would throw it in here. There are rumors from Dave Meltzer that Shawn Michaels could return in January. We know that's not going to happen, so.
He will return.
Yeah.
But not in wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in 99 he does come back.
It's funny though to read this every week because there have been updates on his injury and that Meltzer anticipates a return in the ring at some point, but it'll be interesting to see where it goes, like when they officially say like he's done wrestling.
Yeah,
for
it's not
a long period
anytime
of time.
Soon.
Yeah, and that's going to be all this week for the news. So that is all for us this week. We are done with this one. Thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing, you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram. You can also email us directly at wrastlinraw@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to give us a Dave Meltzer 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Next week, we are going to have a fireside chat about the Raw that aired on May 25th, 1998, with matches featuring Dan Severn, Golga, and many more. So for Jason and Ryan, I am Joe, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.